Okay. Welcome, everyone, as we welcome in Mel Zachter, Nachman Chapler, Irving Fishbaum, Marshall Castle, Menachem Umansky, Aaron Sway, Dr. Block, Ruvain Pollock, Shimon Klein, Moshe Lehman, Avram Shankman. Avram, we miss you over here. Please come when you can. Ilya Shutman, Moshe Jackman, we miss you also. Yitzi Muller, David Helfgott. Here in the shul, we have Reb Kramer, Reb Leonard, Saba, and Baruch Hashem, Baruch Weber. Well, it's really great to have you, Baruch. It's Hashem, you should be able to come here often. Reb Shanit is joining us as well. Berish is actually in Vegas tonight on a business meeting. He was here at the Daf yesterday, but he is at a business meeting tonight, and I'm sure he's listening to this remotely. We are sponsored by Baruch Ian, Ili Nishmas Esther Basyani, Yaakov Chaim Menaba, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKohen, Refuah Shalema for Baruch Shlomo Ben Lina. We're sponsored by Aaron Swade, Ili Nishmas, Chana Bashmuel, and his sister Freda Bashol by Mark Frankel, Refuah Shalema for Miriam Sarah Basipor, Chana Bas Gittel Esther by Berit Goldwasser, for Akaras HaToy, for what Hashem did for his family, and for Chayla Yisrael. We learn L'Refuah Shalema for my Shver Avigdor Aye Ben Rivka, L'Refuah Shalema for Meir Ben Chaya Sarah, who is doing better in ICU, and for Yudith Cyril Bas Miriam should have a L'Refuah Shalema B'Seich Shar Chayla Yisrael. We begin all the way on the bottom of Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis. Rabbi Yehuda Hindua. Now, normally, Rabbi Yehuda Hindua normally means an Indian. However, Rashi over here says Me Eretz Kushi. So therefore we're going to translate Rabbi Yehuda Hindua as Rabbi Yehuda the Ethiopian. So he was a ger she'ein lo yorshim hava. He was a convert who had no relatives. You have to understand that a Jew always has relatives. Jewish geography. But a ger who didn't have children yet, he is kikatan shenoi ladami. He's a newborn babe, and if he dies, he has no heirs. So that means that kol hakodim zacha, whoever takes first gets it. So now here was the situation. Cholish, he took sick. Ol marzutra l'shiyulei bei. Marzutra went up to inquire about him. Now, there are many lessons over here, Rabbi say, that although it's tangential, it is very important. Number 1, the language ol. He went up. What does that mean, he went up? Whenever you go to visit a sick person, you're going up. Because it says, Hashem yishkevenu al eres devoy. Hashem is by a sick bed. So anytime you visit, you're coming in the presence of the Shekhinah. That's why, by the way, it's brought down that you should wear a hat when you go visit a sick person. Because when you go visit a sick person, you're coming into the presence of the Shekhinah. So, first of all, it says, Ol Mar Zutra. He went up. Then it says, L'shiyulei bei, to inquire about him. We have to know that the proper way to do Bikur Chaylim, the word Bikur Chaylim means, what does the word Bikur mean? It says Bikur Mumim, investigating blemishes by a Bechar. When you go to a Chayla, you're supposed to examine and investigate what the Chayla needs. That's a very big thing. Go to the hospital, does the Chayla need food? Are they eating the hospital food? Is it a woman who needs a robe because she's not very comfortable how she looks? Is it a person who needs companionship? Is it a person who needs a laptop to watch a share? So that's why it says l'shiyulei bei. He came to ask him what he needs. Chazia David Tokef le'alma. Chazia David Tokef le'alma tuva. The world was very heavy on him. This is a euphemism for the fact that he was dying. He saw that he was dying. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Hindua had an eved. He had a servant. So now a servant is complicated because a servant has das. So if he dies, the servant can acquire himself his own freedom. Because since there's no heirs, he can acquire his own freedom. So listen to what Mar Zutra cleverly did. Amalei la'avdei, he told the servant of Rabbi Yehuda Hindoa, shloif li misanai, remove my shoes, v'amtinu lebeisa, and carry it to my house. So he did an act of chazakah, remember, because if he does a service, you acquire him. He did an act of chazakah that will last for a while. It takes him 20 minutes to walk to his house. So that in the interim, if the ger dies, he won't be able to acquire himself because he's already doing a service for Mar Zutra. So Mar Zutra will acquire him seamlessly as Rabbi Yehuda Hindua dies. Now, Iked Amrei Godel Havek, some say that this slave was an adult, and therefore Zeh Pirish Lamisa, as Rabbi Yehuda Hindua passes to death, to the next world, V'Zeh Pirish L'chaim, he will seamlessly pass into Mar Zutra's possession. And here is Gedalia, as I told you. Gedalia was starting the top line of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Gedalia, before you sit down, maybe you could bring me some water.
Yeah, sure.
This you could pour out.
I hope we have.
If not, seltzer or diet ginger ale. The Iked Amrei Cotton Hava. Some say that the Eved was a minor. Now, there are those that say that a minor can't acquire itself anyway. But if he did this with a minor, then it's telling you that he doesn't hold like Abishal. Udeloik Abishal. Abishal says a minor won't be able to acquire itself. So then you wouldn't need this method to do it right after. But the Loik Abishal, he holds that even a minor slave could acquire his own freedom. The Tanya, Ger Shemeis, a convert that dies without any children. Ubizbezu Yisrael Nechasav. And, there are ambulance chasers. They hear a ger died, they run because everything is for grabs. So people came and grabbed his property. And there were servants, both adults and minors. Before anybody could come, they acquired their own freedom. The adults acquire their own freedom, but Ketanim, they can't acquire their own freedom because they're minors, and therefore first come, first serve to acquire them. If the slave of Rabbi Yehuda Hindua was a minor, and Mar Zutra still had to use this means, it must be that he doesn't hold of Abishal, and he holds that even a minor could have acquired his freedom if he wasn't already being occupied in bringing Mar Zutra's shoes to the house. And now we are going to analyze the next part of the Mishnah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. As we welcome him, Abe Arbach, Michal, Stephen Holtzman, all having come in, Harrison Kletzel, Daniel Rosenberg just joining us, at the two dots, 7 lines from the top of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. V'koine es atzmoi b'kesef. Now the Mishnah said, according to the Tanakama, how does the Eved Kenani acquire his freedom? So the Tanakama, which is Reb Meir says, money, it would have to be by someone else. That means that Baruch would have to give the money for him. But a shtar al yedei atzmai, a writ of emancipation, he could accept, the Eved could accept himself. So now the Gemara says, let's analyze. Why can't he buy his own freedom? Because of al yedei acherim, only Baruch could, buy his freedom. Avalo al yedei atzmai, but not on his own. Now, b'may eskina, what are we talking about? If we're saying that Baruch could purchase his freedom without his consent, that can't be Rameir's opinion. Rameir has a very, very radical opinion here. Rameir says, for Baruch to free the slave without his consent, Baruch would have to be doing it shaloi b'fanav. Now we have a rule, zachin la'adam shaloi b'fanav. You could do a benefit for a person without his consent, but the ein chavin la'adam shaloi b'fanav. But you can't do something detrimental without a person's consent. Rameir holds, and get a load of this, Rameir holds it's detrimental for a slave to be freed. Now the Gemara says elsewhere, for sure it's the case if it's a slave of a kohen, because you're depriving him of being able to eat truma. But even if it's a slave of a Yisrael, it's detrimental because if you free him, he's not going to be able to marry a shifcha. He's not going to be able to have a shifcha. So you'll say, yeah, but it's an upgrade. He'll be able to have a Beis Yaakov girl. For a slave, a Beis Yaakov girl isn't an upgrade. He wants to have a more immodest woman. He doesn't want a Beis Yaakov girl. Now, I think that this is an insight into the male species. Because here you have a man, Baruch wants to free him from bondage. Now, slaves, I don't know if you ever saw it. I'll never forget, I saw it. Hashem wanted me to see this. I'm a chess player. So one time I was with my Rebbetzin in Manhattan, and this was when the Manhattan Chess Club was still open. It's not open anymore. It was taken over by the restaurant business. But the Manhattan Chess Club used to be, Bobby Fischer played there, and other, Capablanca played there, and so anyway, my wife said, we're passing the Manhattan Chess Club. Why don't you go in and pick up a game of chess? So I did. And I sat down by a table randomly. I play speed chess. And a guy comes over and says, you want to play? And you won't believe this. He had a chain around his neck. So I play him. I actually won. Afterwards I said, what's that around your neck? He said, I'm a voluntary slave. That's what he told me. I'm a voluntary slave. There's such a thing here in America. And so here the Gemara is saying that a man would rather be in servitude and not lose his right to have an immodest shivcha. That's how much the sexual percentage of life is to a person that they would rather be in bondage and not lose their sexual privilege. To me, it's a remarkable lesson in all males, how much it plays in the importance of a person. So let's see the Gemara inside. The Gemara says here like this. The Gemara says, "B'may askinan ilema shaloi midaitai." If it's without the Evet's consent, then how could you say that Baruch could purchase his freedom without his consent? Michtei shamana leila Rameya da'amar chayvu le'Evet shiyatzim miyad rabba l'cheres. It's detrimental for the slave to leave his master and go free, because then he's going to lose the right to be with a shivcha. V'tanina, and then Baruch can't do it without us, because it says Zachan Adam Shaloi B'fanav. You could do something meritorious for a person without his consent. Ve'ein chavan lo yela b'fanav. And you cannot do something detrimental. That's why, for example, Baruch can't go ahead and make an Eruv Tchumim for me in one direction without my consent. Why? Because he's depriving me from going in the other direction. He can't do that. It's not a schus. If it's something that's a schus for me, then he could do it without my consent. He could buy me a lottery ticket without my consent. It's a schus for me. There's no downside. If there would be a downside, then he can't do it. Ela pshita midaitai. It must be that it's talking that he could do it only with the Evet's consent. And yet it says, V'hokam hashmalan al yedei acherim in, it only is kesef that Baruch pays for him. Al yedei atzmoi loy. But the Eved cannot do it with his own money. Why? Because he doesn't have his own money. Because kol mashikon Eved kon rabbi. And it's the opinion of Rameya that even if somebody says acquire it, al manash ein l'rabba rishus by, it's not good. So the Eved can't acquire himself with money because he can't have his own money. Alma ein kinyan l'Eved b'lei rabbi. There's no kinyan that the Eved can have independent of his master. Ihachi, says the Gemara, if that's so that it's talking with his consent, ein maseifa b'shtar al yedei atzmai. He could be freed with a shtar where you give him the shtar. Al yedei atzmayin, al yedei acherim loy. But not if Baruch accepts the shtar for him. The Gemara says, but if it's with his consent, if it's with his consent, al yedei acherim amai loy, why can't Baruch accept the shtar for him? V'chitei mamali al yedei atzmai. It means af al yedei atzmai, that he could accept it. Even himself, v'hakamash malon, that we say that when he gets to get shichrur, we say his freedom and his ability to accept it happens simultaneously, and you could do that. Of course, Baruch could accept the get shichrur, but it's telling you that he could accept the get shichrur too. V'hakamash malon. That Rameir holds that the acceptance of the get shikra and his ability to have a yad to accept it happens at the same. But it doesn't say that. The Tanya, Bishtar al Yedei Atzmai, only by himself, V'loy al Yedei Acher, but Baruch cannot accept it. Dibur Rameir. So says if it says Baruch cannot accept it, it must be talking about without his consent. And therefore Baruch can't accept it, because since it's without his consent, Rameir holds that it's a chayv for him, and ein chavan l'adam shaloi b'fanav. Amar Abaya l'olam shaloi midaita. It's without his consent. And therefore Baruch cannot accept to get shikhr on his behalf, because without his consent, ein chavan l'adam shaloi b'fanav. Then why by kesef could Baruch do it without his consent? That's different. because since we could buy him without his consent with money, so therefore we could free him without his consent too. V'shani kesef hoyel v'kani leibal karche, since you could buy him without his consent, makne leibal karche, you could also free him without his consent also. So the Gemara says, well, the same thing is true with shtar. You could buy him with a shtar without his consent too. Iachi shtar nami. Says Gemara, no, by a shtar, it's two different shtars. One is a shtar of proof of purchase that you give the Adon, and one is a writ of emancipation that you give to the Eved. So that's two different shtars. Hai shtar l'chud, v'hai shtar l'chud. So the Gemara says, well, hakanami, here too, the money is different. One is the money that you purchase him with, and one is the money that you free him with. Says Gemara, "Hai kaspa l'chud, v'hai kaspa l'chud." Says Gemara, yeah, but it's the same minted money. You're using the same article of money. Here, the shtar has two different things written on it. Tiva miyachadu. Miyachadu. It's the same minted money, and therefore the Gemara says, since money can use to purchase him against his will, so you could free him against his will too. Rava takes the surgical Talmudic scalpel, and Rava has a little bit of a different spin. Rava Amar, Kesef, Kabbalah's Rabbi Garmalai. The money has nothing to do with him. Baruch is giving the master money, and the master accepts it, and the Eved goes free. But it's not, remember, where can't Baruch be Chavin La'adam? That's where Baruch is doing a shlichus on behalf of the Eved. Here Baruch is not doing a shlichus on behalf of the Eved. He's giving the money to the Adain, and it's a deal with the Adain. And therefore we don't need it to be a schus for the Eved. However, shtar Kabbalah Sacherim Gamalai. In order for him to be freed, you got to give him the writ of emancipation. Therefore, Baruch is a representative of his. To be a representative of his, he can only do it if it's a schus. If it's a chayiv, he can't be a representative. Now, the Chachamim say just the opposite. Very interesting Gemara. When I was preparing this, I went it over a bunch of times because it's really the Chachamim say the opposite of Rameya. Welcome in Nachum Rosenman, who's joining us, David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. Mark Frankel, who snuck in. Mark, when you're a little late, I think you're coming here. Now Matzah Shabbos.
I'm Romanian on the way over.
Now Matzah Shabbos is getting earlier. Mark, you could come over.
Now we're talking, Rabbi.
Remember, you owe me. You didn't even show up to the Siyum.
Mark.
We do have a sponsor, by the way, for this week's Chumash Shir. We want to thank Dr. Block coming through for a sponsorship of this week's Chumash Shir. Thank you, Dr. Block. The Chacham say, with money, al yedei atzmai. So, says the Gemara, b'kesef al yedei atzmai in, he could only free himself by using his own money, al yedei acherim loy, but not somebody else. Now here's the problem. The Chachamim hold the simple thing, that it's a schus for an Eved to go free. What are you talking about? The guy is in bondage. It's a schus for Eved Kanani to have a life, to have freedom. At any given moment to do whatever he wants. So then why can't Baruch buy his freedom? He could even do it without his consent. So the Gemara asks, even if it's without his consent, the Rabbanan hold, it's a schus for him to be freed and get a life. The Tanina, and everybody agrees, that you could do a schus for a person without his consent. So the Gemara says it must mean, it means afal yedei atzmai. Of course Baruch could do it, but the Rabbanan hold that even the slave could do it because they hold that it's possible to give a slave money so he could have his own money. That an Eved could have money without the master. So it says, how are you going to learn the Sefer? With a writ of emancipation. Only if Baruch accepts it. But not if the slave accepts it. Says the Gemara, but the Rabbanan hold the Gittay v'Yadai Bain Ke'echad. Says the Gemara, it means that it could be accepted by Baruch, even by Baruch, not just the slave, but even could be accepted by Baruch, even without his consent. That's a schus for him to go, even though he loses the right to be with a shivcha. So then that means that when the Reisha says you could buy him with kesef al yedei atzmai, it means even al yedei atzmai. And when it says shtar al yedei acherim, it means even al yedei acherim. So then that means they're both the same. That kesef is by both him and others, and shtar is by both him and others. So then it should combine the two. It should combine the two. The kesef of b'shtar bein al yedei acherim bein al yedei atzmai. Ella says the Gemara, this latter segment of b'shtar al yedei acherim, but not al yedei atzmai, is going according to Reb Shimon Elazar. Reb Shimon Elazar doesn't hold of Gittay v'Yadai Bain Ke'echad. Shimon Elazar says that until he gets the get, he doesn't have a hand. So he can't accept the get because until he has the get, he doesn't have his own hand. It says, with money he could do it whether by himself, because he could have something she'ein l'rabba reshus by, or by Baruch. B'shtar al yedei acherim, only if Baruch accepts the writ of emancipation. V'lo al yedei atzmai, Reb Shimon Elazar. The Tanya Reb Shimon Elazar ema af b'shtar al yedei acherim v'lo al yedei atzmai, because he holds that we don't say Gittay v'Yadai Bain Ke'echad. V'shalish machlokes b'davar, and it's a three-way machlokes. So the Gemara says, why does Reb Shimon ben Elazar hold that he can't accept his own get shechra? Amar Rabba, my time at Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Gamar lo la meisha. He learns how to gzeir shava lo la from a woman. Ma isha ad sheyotze get l'rishus she'eina shalai. Just like a woman, the get has to go out of the domain of the husband. The get has to go to something that's not his. And since until the get is effective, the hand of the Eved is his, the get shikra is not going to a place that's not his, and therefore it's not good. Boy Rabbah, as we turn to Chav Gimel Amid Beis, Boy Rabbah, it's a very interesting question. Can I ask you to do a shlichus for me, something that I'm not allowed to do? Can you do a shlichus for the principal if the principal cannot do it himself? So, this is what the Gemara asks. L'Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Eved Kenani Maushi Yasha Shliach L'Kabel Gitoi Miyad Rabbi. Can the Eved Kenani make a shliach to accept the get shechur? The Eved Kenani tells Gedalia, accept my get shechur. Now the svara would be, Reb Shimon Lazar says he can't accept it himself. So if he can't accept it himself, can he make a shliach? So the Gemara says, do we say, Kavan the Gama Lala Meisha, since we have a connection between Eved Kenani and a woman, we learn Lala Meisha, Keisha. It's like a woman. A woman can make a shliach. She can make a shliach to accept the get, so he could also make a shliach. She could accept her own get. Shliach nami matzi mashve. She could also make a shliach. Eved, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, an Eved can't accept his get because it has to go out of the domain of the master. So shliach nami loy matzi mashve. Maybe he can't make Gedalia shliach. Basar the boy, after he made the inquiry, Hadar Pashta, he resolved it. The Eved Kenani can make Gedalia shliach. Lala meisha, keisha. Just like a woman can make a shliach to accept her get, the Eved can make a shliach to accept his get shechur. But we have a problem. In a very interesting discussion in Masechta Zvachim, the Gemara declares a shayla. The Kohanim, when they do the avodah, I bring a korban, I bring a shlam, and they do the shchita, kabbalah, hilacha, zrika on the korban. Are they my shliach or are they the Rabbeinu Shalom shliach? And the Gemara says they must be shluchei d'Rachman. They must be Hashem's shliach. Why? Because if they were my shliach, I can't do it. I'm not a kohen. How could I make them a shliach? So Gemara says, well, why is it different than an Eved? An Eved can't accept his get shechur, but can make Gedalia a shliach. Let's see the Gemara inside. Very important Gemara. Hadamar Rav Huna B'rei Rav Yeshua. Hani Kohane. The Kohanim shluchei d'Rachmaninu. They're the agents of the divine. If they're our agent, how could I make a kohen a shliach? I can't do the avodah. I'm not a kohen. And I can make a shliach. But here we're saying over here, he can't accept his own get. Yet b'shliach matzi mashveg. So the Gemara has such a clever answer. Wow, such a clever answer. You know, when I learned it, I was like kidding myself. Why didn't you think about this answer? Because I'm not so smart. But the Gemara answers as follows. An Eved Kenani can be a shliach for another Eved Kenani. Here you have Tony and Ike. Tony tells Ike, accept my get shechur for me. That Ike could do. Because when Tony's master gives it to Ike, it goes out of the master's rishus. The problem is that your own Eved, when you give it to him, it doesn't go out of your rishus because yad Eved ki yad Rabbah. But if you give it to another Eved, of another master, so then it does go out of his rishus. So you see that an Eved can, in a certain way, accept the get. And that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, V'lohi, Yisrael, I, as a Yisrael, could never do the avodah. Lo shaychi b'teres karbanas klal. But Eved shaykh begitten. He does have a shaykhus to get because he could accept a get on the behalf of an Eved Kanani of another master. The Tanya Niran Advarim she'Eved mekabel gitay shel chaveiroi miyad rabbi shel chaveiroi. He could accept the get shikrer of an Eved of another master, avaloi miyad rabbi shaloi, but not from his own master, because his own master, it doesn't go out of the master's domain, because yad Eved ki yad rabbi. So now the Gemara analyzes what's the machlokes. It's a very lumdish Gemara today. Now the Gemara analyzes what's the machlokes whether an Eved could have money independent of his master. Because that's what we said. We said that one holds that an Eved could have independent money, and the other holds that an Eved can't. Now, everybody holds Kol Masha Kana Eved Kana Rabbi. Everybody holds that. Just like Kol Masha Kana Yisha Kana Baila. The question is, can you give something that the owner shouldn't have rishus in it? So let's see the Gemara inside. So one holds that the money has to be baruchs, and the other one holds, no, an Eved could have his own money. So name a b'hakim iflagi. The Rameir Sabra ain't kinyan le'Eved b'roi rabbi, that there's no kinyan to an Eved without his master, ve'ain kinyan le'isha b'roi ba'ala. V'Rabbanan Savrei, and the Rabbanan hold, yesh kinyan le'Eved b'roi rabbi. An Eved could have independent funds. And yesh kinyan le'isha b'roi ba'ala. A woman could have independent funds. Says the Gemara, no. Everybody holds that an Eved cannot have independent funds. Anything that Eved has goes to the master. Anything that a woman has goes to the husband. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Sheish, Kuli Almein, Kinyan Le'Eved B'lei Rabba. There's no Kinyan to the Eved normally without the master. Ain't Kinyan Le'Isha B'lei Ba'ala. Here, the question is, can you stipulate? V'hacham b'may eskinan, the aknit le achar mana. What happened is Saba gives the Eved $100. V'amalei, and he tells him, Al Menashe ein l'rabach rishus bay. I'm giving it to you on the condition that your master doesn't get it. Rameir Sabar, Rameir says, Ki amalei knei. When he tells him, here he says, acquire this on the condition that your master doesn't have rishus. Rameir says, as soon as he says, acquire this, the master gets it. And then when he says on the condition your master doesn't have rishus, it's meaningless. Because the master already has it. That's Rameir's opinion. Rameir says, Ki amalei knei. When he says acquire it, kani Eved, v'kani rabbi. It's already in the master's bank account. V'chi amalei almanas. And then when Saba says on the condition that your master doesn't have it, too bad, like klum kamer. Like klum kamer. It's already in the master's account. Rabbanan Savrei, Rabbanan say no. When he says Knei Almanash Ein L'Balach Rishuspa, that's viewed as one statement, only acquired on the condition that the master doesn't have. Rabbanan said, Kevin Amalei Almanash Ahani late tonight. It helps. Rabbi Lazar says no. If Saba worded it that way, everybody holds it goes to the master. Because as soon as he said, Knei, acquire it, the master gets it. The husband gets it. The master gets it. The husband gets it. Rabbi Elazar Koki I gavna the kuli amaloi pligi the kani Eved the kani rabbi. The Eved acquires it, but the master gets it right away because he said Knei, acquire. Acquire goes into it's like it goes straight into the zell of the master. Straight into the zell of the husband. But Saba was smarter than that. Saba said, acquire it that you should go free. Yeah. Isn't that cute? Acquire it that you should go free. Saba said, take the 100. There you go free. So here too, Rameya Savar Kiyamalei Knei, when he said acquire it, boom, it goes right to the master.
Well, he has to go to the master, say to the master.
1 second. Kiyamalei Knei, Kani Evet, V'Kani Rab. The Rabbanan, the Chiyamalei Almanas, and when Saba says on the condition that he goes free, like Klum Kamalei, it's too late. It's already the master's. The Rabbanan say, Saba never said that the Evet should get it. You hear that Knech? Saba never said that the Evet should get it. All Saba said is that you should go free. Memele, he circumvented the issue. You're right, Kol Masha Kana Evet Kana Rabbi. But here he didn't give it to the Evet. He said, I'm giving it that you should go free. Rabbanan Savili Didei Nami Holoi Kamaknole. He didn't give it to the Evet. Dalayamalei Allah Menashe takes it by the Chayris. Saba is really clever over here. Oh wow, look at this. Rafal Greenspan is joining us. Rafal, it's great to see you. Does anybody have Crazy Glue? Does Crazy Glue work with Zoom?
Good to be back in your chair.
It's not going to help. You need Gorilla Glue.
All right, Gorilla Glue.
Only if you stick your nose to the screen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, could you stick your nose to the screen for a minute?
Lick the screen.
I got to film to Raphael. He's my next door neighbor here.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
He's my neighbor. We didn't have a good day in Deerfield.
Okay, so let's. Oh yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Shama should have an aliyah. Oh, this Shalom. I was wondering where Shalom is. Now I see him. Okay. So anyway, so let's review this. What we're saying is as follows. According to this latter explanation, if Saba said acquire it on the condition that the master has no rishus, that's not good enough according to everybody. Because as soon as he told the Evet to acquire it, the master gets it. And then when he puts in this stipulation on the condition that the master doesn't get it, it's too late. The master has it already. It's in his zeal. So Saba said, I got it. Acquire it on the condition he should go free.
So we'll have to make a start. The master has to sign that he gets money.
Huh?
He's going to let him go free.
No. So you don't need shtar.
You're the master. He's the abbot, right? I come to you. I want the rich to go free. I give you money. Sign the paper that you're going to let him go free. Else I don't give you the money.
No. Once you say acquire, it's his. Nothing to sign. It's too late. As soon as you would use the word kni, it's out of your hands. It's in his zel. Except if you say on acquire on the condition he should go free. Oh, then the master has no, according to Rabbanan, the master has no claim for it. Saba didn't say it should go to the Evet. The only way it gets to the master is Saba gave it to the Evet. He didn't give it to the Evet. He said, I'm doing it, he should go free. Rabbanan say, okay, then he goes free.
But you still need the guy sign a star.
No shtaris. No shtaris. You see, this is without a shtar. Shtar shikhr is something else. Shtar shikhr, you don't need the money. Now, Rabbi said, tomorrow we have the Chumash here after the daf.